You know, in the coming years, America's going to face a retirement crisis. I mean, nearly half of Americans aren't saving at all for their retirement, and those who do save, I mean, they're not even saving enough. Instead of packing their bags for their dream vacation in their 60s or 70s, millions of Americans are going to be packing their lunch for another day of work. And that's not good news. But you know what is good news? Is that it's never too late to turn your situation around. You don't need anyone's permission to start making your dreams a reality. You can do something about it right now. So I want to go over, what it looks like for, what average Americans have saved for retirement. We're going to go by decade. And then maybe talk a little bit about how you can actually get closer to your retirement goals. Because, you know, I mean, how bad do Americans shape up, right? I mean, if you look at the average 401k balances, right, plus any IRAs that Americans have, for retirement, what does it look like? Well, remember, you can always find ways to improve your retirement savings in every decade of life, right? So when we look at this, just keep that in mind, right? So as we look at these numbers, remember that the goal isn't to be average. You work too hard for too long to simply settle for average, right? So, but let's start with the 20s. Their average balance is about 10,500. They contribute about 7%. And that's not going to get the job done. Time plus compound growth, those are the two most important, most powerful forces in wealth building, right? And when you're in your 20s, they're on your side. The reality is the earlier you start investing, the better. Even just 5 years can make a huge difference. And that determines when you can or should retire. So in your 20s, even if you're not earning that much, build a strong financial foundation. Get out and stay out of debt. Build your emergency fund. As soon as you've done that, start investing 15% of your income in retirement. After all, what looks like a little now could be a whole lot more when you start getting closer to retirement. Okay, what about in the 30s? Well, average balance is about 38,000. They're only contributing about 8%. That's not much more. But the average American in their 30s still isn't contributing enough to their retirement. This is likely because a lot of people in their 30s are balancing big financial goals like starting a family, a house. You might not even be thinking about retirement yet, telling yourself, I've got time, I'll worry about that later. But that's a big mistake. At this point in your life, it's time to make saving for retirement one of the top priorities in your financial journey. After all, research clearly shows that the top indicator of investment success is your savings rate. Translation? If you want to have enough money for retirement, you have to actually save and invest for retirement. Okay, well, what about the people in their 40s? Well, their average balance is about 93,000. They are also contributing about 8%. And in your 40s, you're probably making more money than you ever were before. Because of that, it's easy to try to keep up with the Joneses. You fall into the trap of buying that new car or going on all those vacations that you can't really afford just to impress people you probably don't like or don't know. But guess what? The Joneses are broke just like you. If you try to keep up with them, you might end up right there with them. The average salary for Americans in their 40s is around $60,000. So let's say you started investing 15% of that salary starting at age 40. You did that every year until 65. If you invest that money in some good growth stock mutual funds inside your 401k and IRA, you know, you'd be a millionaire by the time you're 65. So, again, it's never too late to get started. Let's move on to the 50s. Their average balance is about 160,000, and now their contribution rate is 10%. A little better, right? But if you're in your 50s, you might find yourself in one of two places. Either you're feeling confident about your nest egg, like you can almost reach out and touch your retirement dreams, or you're feeling way behind, which could send you into full-on panic mode. If you're in that second group, don't panic. You still got plenty of time to get back in the game. So a few things you can do to catch up. Cut those unnecessary spending so you can increase contributions. Put, each pay raise or bonus into that investment. Downsize your home if your mortgage is a heavy burden. Take advantage of the catch-up contributions in your retirement accounts. An additional $6,000, $6,500 for your 401k and $1,000 for your IRA. It'll take some hard work and sacrifice, but you can turn that around. Also, it's a good idea to talk with an investment professional to make sure your plan will get where you need to be. Now we're going to move on up to the 60s. Their average balance is about $182,000, contribution rate 11%. Most people would like to step away from their career in their 60s, right? So they can focus on time with family or other passions. And looking at the average numbers, though, it's a different story altogether. Lots of Americans will keep working well into their 60s. And maybe you're okay with that. In fact, a recent survey found that more than 1/3 of Americans, almost 40%, say that their retirement dream involves some sort of work. And that's cool, but if you're going to work in your retirement years, it should be because you want to, not because you have to. And finally, we get to the 70s. Average balance, 171,000. Contribution rate, 12%. Isn't that just sad? It's clear that a lot of Americans simply aren't prepared for retirement. $171,000, that's nowhere near enough to cover, healthcare expenses in the later years of your life. But keep in mind that this number is an average. There are also plenty of millionaires with a high net worth who are comfortably living out their dream retirement. They've used common sense, they've worked hard, and they've built wealth that'll keep them and, you know, going on and being able to pay for everything. And it's also going to help them leave a legacy for their families, their communities. And that's the goal, right? After all, being generous is the most fun you'll ever have with money. But if you haven't even saved up enough to take care of yourself, then how do you expect to take care of anybody else? Okay, well, how much should you save for retirement? What's the reality? Well, if you're out of debt and you've saved up about 6 months of emergency expenses, 15% of your income, right, for retirement. That's how much you should be investing. If you're getting started later in life, you might want to contribute more than 15%. Right? Since the 15% rule applies to all sorts of people with different salaries and standards of living, it makes sense that everyone will be aiming for a slightly different target. Work with an investment professional to find out how much money you need to save by the time you want to retire. So let's look at an example. Let's say you're making $50,000, and we're going to apply that 15% rule to understand what milestones that person could be hitting along the way. If you make less than $50,000, that's okay, don't worry about it. You can still save for your dream retirement on a small salary. So, 15% of 50,000 is 7,500 a year, or $625 a month. If you invested at that rate for 40 years, let's say you start at 25, 40 years would mean 65. And let's say you get an 11% average return annually. You would end up with more than 5 million. That's pretty nice, right? Especially for someone who never got a raise in 40 years. That's just $50,000 a year never getting a raise or anything. So the reason why your money skyrockets is because of, the basic recipe for investing success. Time plus compound growth. Now, it's not enough just to save plain cash for retirement and bury your money in the backyard. You need to invest your money so it grows over time. That way, inflation's not going to eat all your savings and you'll be able to live comfortably in your retirement years, which I really hope is decades of your life. So at the end of it, I want you guys to stay focused on your retirement dream, right? If your goal is to be prepared for the last few decades of your life so you can enjoy the, time you have, whether it's traveling, serving your community, spending time with your family, and if you're feeling behind, remember it's never too late to get back on track. No one becomes a millionaire overnight, guys. So keep a long-term mindset and be ready to make some sacrifices along the way. Even if you've made some mistakes in the past, remember to focus on what you can control and keep moving forward. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, smash that like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate it if you did. But until I see you guys in the next video, y'all be safe.